I'm Kaylee, and today I'm going to be talking about blah, 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 blah. Hi, I'm Kaylee, and today I am reviewing a book and some things. Hi, I'm Kaylee, and today I'm reviewing Jane Austen's Persuasion. Before we jump in with my review of Persuasion, I want to reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're going to shout out somebody. Today's shout out goes to a musical bookworm, one of my very favorite booktubers. I never miss one of her videos. I actually get a little excited every time she uploads because then I know I have something good to watch. We also have a lot in common because we're both musicians. We're both music teachers. There will be a link to her channel down in the description box, so please make sure you go over there and subscribe to her. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up if you love Jane Austen, and subscribe to my Spanish booktube channel if you want to see this video in Spanish. I am such a huge fan of Jane Austen, and every time I reread one of her books, I find something new, some new layer to the characters, some new depth to the plot, some new little tidbit of history that I never really considered before or never quite understood. Every time I reread her books, there's just something new and interesting to discover. And that is definitely true of Persuasion. When I first read Persuasion, I think I must have probably been a teenager, and I didn't like it as much. I wanted an Elizabeth Bennet kind of sassy and extroverted main character, and Anne Elliot is not that person. She's much more introverted and quiet, and I think as a teenager, I just had this idea in my head of what a main character should be. Now, as I've gotten older, and I've actually discovered that I am an introvert myself. I seem very extroverted because I'm talkative and I like to talk. I'm not a quiet introvert. I'm a talkative introvert, but I am an introvert. Every time that I reread Persuasion, I find myself relating more and more to Anne Elliot. In Persuasion, Anne Elliot meets Captain Wentworth after having broken off their engagement 8 years earlier. So it's very awkward for the two of them to meet again so many years later after they've broken up their relationship. Anne is filled with doubt and anxiety, and she just kind of wonders how she should behave and whether or not he might still have some of the same old feelings. Captain Wentworth sort of tries to give her some space and almost kind of ignore her, but without being rude about it. And he flirts with other young ladies of their acquaintance. It's sort of impossible to tell in the beginning whether he's just flirting with these other girls to try to hide a broken heart, or whether he has truly forgotten his feelings for Anne. But a few little words and a little stolen glance might tell the true story. This book really is a perfect masterpiece. Every time I reread this book, I just love it more and more. I see more depth in the characters and more humor in the sarcastic writing style. I used to think that this book was not as humorous as some of her other books like Pride and Prejudice or like Emma. But the more I reread it, the more I recognize kind of this quiet, very dry sort of humor that really is just so enjoyable and fun. I used to think this one was more of a sad, sort of depressing one for Jane Austen, but really it is full of so many comical characters and silly scenes. This is that kind of understated humor that I've really come to love. Every time I reread it, I find it funnier and more enjoyable. Some of the supporting characters, like Anne's sister Mary, are so extremely silly and just dumb, that they really feel like these sort of caricatures. Anne must be an angel to put up with all of their nonsense. And it does make for some very funny scenes and some really hilarious dialogue. There are so many sweet little moments between Anne and Captain Wentworth. Just a glance or small gesture, a chance word, All these things create such a suspense and make the story really exciting. It's these little undercurrents of emotion beneath everyday scenes that make this book so special. On the surface, the plot sort of doesn't have very much going on, but we get such an intimate look into Anne's heart. And we get so much depth from each of the supporting characters that it shows that there is a lot happening underneath the surface. I really love how the writing analyzes the personalities of each character. Anne is a very intelligent and thoughtful person, so we get to hear her reasoning about the merits and faults of her family and friends. She is compassionate towards them, but she's also very sensible and discerning. She is not blind to their silliness and their faults, but she loves them in spite of it. This just gives us so many wonderful insights into the family dynamics and the friendships and relationships and the loyalties of each person around Anne. And we also get to see how these relationships grow and change throughout the events of the story. Everybody who has ever read Persuasion talks about the letter, that amazing, wonderful, heartfelt, fantastic letter. Oh my goodness. And somehow, once you've read the letter, it's like it sort of colors the whole story backwards, And now every time you think about that scene from the beginning of the book, or that scene from the middle, or that time, when they did this or said this or whatever it was, all of those events are colored by the significance of the letter. Maybe that's why it's just so rereadable. Because when you go back and read it, understanding the significance of the letter, it changes your perception of everything that came before. This book is just such a forever favorite. I give it 5 stars. Every time I read it, I don't know how it's possible that there's just so many great details, so many genius little lines, complete genius, absolutely amazing. I just love this one. So then I sat down and I watched the movie Persuasion, which I think there's 2 or 3 different ones that I've watched, but this one is probably my favorite. I think the casting for Anne Elliot is really well done. Captain Wentworth, the casting, that's not really how I pictured Captain Wentworth in my own head. But it's fine. I think they have some nice chemistry together and some really great scenes together, so it works. I like this adaptation because it does stay pretty close to the book. Even a lot of the dialogue and the lines and everything are taken directly, exactly from Jane Austen's dialogue. So that's one thing that I really do appreciate. And yet, even with that sort of old-fashioned language directly from Jane Austen, the actors managed to make the dialogue feel very natural. It doesn't feel like I'm a modern person talking in old-timey dialogue. It just feels like they're just speaking to one another and, that this is their everyday conversation. There are so many things that I like about this adaptation, just the costumes and the cinematography and the music. They have really, really lovely classical music in this one. As a musician, that's very important to me, and I really love it. So please leave me a comment down below and let me know, is Persuasion one of your favorite books from Jane Austen? And which of the movie adaptations do you think did the best job of kind of capturing just this quiet emotion? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.